In May 2024, a 911 call from a luxury Tampa suburb would unravel a story of love, cultural expectations, and deadly betrayal. The body of a young elementary school teacher was found in the master bedroom of her elegant Mediterranean-style home, her carefully arranged braids splayed across imported tiles, and finger marks etched into her neck telling their own dark story. But it wasn't just Destiny Robinson Adebayo's death that would shock Tampa's tight-knit African community. It was the discovery that the 28-year-old teacher had been 4 months pregnant, carrying a secret that would expose a web of lies and cultural shame. To the outside world, Oluwaseun Adebayo, 32, had everything a first-generation Nigerian-American could want. A successful career as an architect, a beautiful wife who seemed to bridge his two worlds, and a reputation that made him the pride of Tampa's Nigerian community. His marriage to Destiny just 8 months earlier had been celebrated as a perfect blend of traditions. A lavish Nigerian ceremony followed by an elegant American wedding. Their social media showed a couple living the American dream while honoring their African heritage. However, the investigation into Destiny's death soon revealed the darker sides of her personal life. In 2023, months before meeting Seun, Destiny had begun a relationship with Malik Jefferson, the charismatic PE teacher at her school. Their affair continued even after her marriage to Seun, hidden behind staff meetings and school events. The pregnancy she carried would become the catalyst for a confrontation that would end in tragedy. The case was assigned to Detective Folake Okonjo of the Tampa Police Department, herself a Nigerian-American who understood the delicate cultural dynamics at play. As she began unraveling the threads of Destiny's life, she discovered a woman torn between African traditions and American freedom, between duty and desire, between the man who offered her security and the one who held her heart. On the evening Destiny's body was discovered, Seun was found at Lagos Nights, an upscale African lounge bar in downtown Tampa. His tailored suit was wrinkled, his eyes red from crying or drinking, or both. When officers approached him, he was muttering in a mix of Yoruba and English, his words painting a picture of betrayal that went beyond mere infidelity. The next day, as news of the murder spread through Tampa's African community, 3 distinct portraits of Destiny emerged: the dutiful Nigerian wife, the beloved teacher, and the woman caught between 2 worlds and 2 men. The investigation would expose not just a crime of passion, but the pressure of straddling cultures, the weight of community expectations, and the deadly consequences of secrets kept too long. As Detective Okonjo would soon discover, understanding who killed Destiny meant understanding the complex web of cultural identity, honor, and shame that had ensnared everyone involved. When the truth finally emerged, it would shake Tampa's African community to its core, forcing them to confront uncomfortable questions about tradition, assimilation, and the price of keeping up appearances in America. Destiny's death would become more than just another tragic headline. It would become a mirror reflecting the struggles of a generation caught between 2 worlds, where the desire to honor one's culture could sometimes lead to deadly consequences. Growing up in Houston's affluent Memorial area, Oluwaseun Adebayo carried the weight of first-generation excellence on his shoulders. His father, Dr. Babajide Adebayo, was one of Texas Medical Center's most respected neurosurgeons, while his mother, Dr. Folake Adebayo, ran a successful private practice in obstetrics. They had left Nigeria in the late 1980s with medical degrees and big dreams, building a legacy that Seun was expected to uphold. While his parents pushed him toward medicine, Seun found his passion in the clean lines and soaring possibilities of architecture. His acceptance to University of Texas's prestigious architecture program was initially met with disappointment from his father, until Seun explained his vision of building African-inspired structures across America. "I want to create spaces that make our people feel at home," he had said, and his father finally understood. At Thompson & Associates, Seun quickly distinguished himself by bringing in wealthy Nigerian clients wanting to build custom homes that incorporated traditional African elements with modern luxury. His corner office overlooking downtown Tampa was decorated with both architectural awards and framed traditional Nigerian artwork. He wore his success like armor, custom-tailored suits, a Rolex watch, and a Mercedes G-Wagon that his mother called too flashy for a serious man. But beneath the polished exterior lay a man deeply anxious about upholding traditional values in a modern world. His controlling nature manifested in subtle ways, insisting on attending every Nigerian community event, maintaining strict schedules, and expecting his home to run according to Nigerian customs. When he met Destiny, he saw a chance to have it all. An American-born wife who could navigate both worlds, who would understand the importance of tradition while maintaining a modern face for his professional life. Only his younger sister Adana saw through the facade. A psychiatrist herself, she recognized the signs of his need for control. Seun, she had warned him, marriage isn't about molding someone into your ideal. Destiny isn't one of your buildings. You can't just design her to your specifications. But Seun had dismissed her concerns, convinced that his way was the right way, the only way to honor their culture while succeeding in America. Destiny Robinson grew up in East Tampa, the daughter of educators who emphasized the importance of both education and cultural pride. Her father, James Robinson, taught African-American history at the local community college, while her mother, Patricia, ran a successful dance studio teaching both traditional African and modern dance forms. Their home was filled with books about Black history, African art, and the constant reminder that education was the key to true freedom. At Florida A&M University, Destiny thrived in the education program, finding her calling in teaching young minds. She was especially drawn to working with children from diverse backgrounds, helping them navigate their own cultural identities. Her third-grade classroom at Roosevelt Elementary became known for its vibrant displays of African and African-American history, and her innovative teaching methods earned her Teacher of the Year in just her second year. But beneath her professional success, Destiny struggled with her own identity. Growing up, she had often felt caught between worlds, not African enough for some, too Americanized for others. Her relationship with Malik Jefferson had begun during a school fundraiser, both of them bonding over shared experiences and cultural understanding. Their connection was immediate and deep, built on a foundation of similar backgrounds and shared struggles. When she met Seun at a community event, she was initially drawn to his confidence and success. He represented everything her parents had wanted for her, a successful, culturally conscious Black man with strong family values. The whirlwind romance and marriage seemed like a fairy tale, but the reality of navigating Nigerian cultural expectations proved more challenging than she had anticipated. Born and raised in Atlanta's historic West End, Malik Jefferson's life had always revolved around two things: basketball and community. As the son of a single mother who worked as a community organizer, he learned early the importance of giving back. His basketball talents earned him a scholarship to Morehouse College, where he excelled both on the court and in his studies. A knee injury in his senior year ended his professional basketball dreams, but opened the door to his true calling, mentoring youth. At Roosevelt Elementary, he transformed the physical education program, incorporating elements of character building and cultural awareness into his lessons. His after-school basketball program became known for helping at-risk boys find direction and purpose. Recently divorced from his college sweetheart when he met Destiny, Malik was still healing from his own failed marriage. The connection with Destiny wasn't planned. They had started as friends, sharing lunch breaks and discussing their students. Their relationship deepened through conversations about identity, culture, and the challenges of maintaining authenticity in different spaces. Even after Destiny's marriage to Seun, Malik couldn't bring himself to end things completely. He saw her struggle with the rigid expectations of her new role, watched as her vibrant personality became subdued under the weight of cultural expectations she hadn't been raised with. Their continued affair wasn't just about passion, it was about understanding, about being able to be completely themselves with each other. The pregnancy changed everything. Malik wanted her to leave Seun, to build a life together openly, but he also understood the implications such a scandal would have on their careers and standing in the community. The situation became increasingly tense as Destiny tried to pass the baby off as Seun's, while Malik struggled with the guilt of knowing his child would be raised by another man. The annual Black Professionals of Tampa Networking Gala transformed the Tampa Riverwalk's event space into a showcase of Black excellence. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over dark suits and colorful Ankara prints, while the skyline twinkled through floor-to-ceiling windows. Oluwaseun Adebayo stood at the podium, his custom-made agbada commanding attention as he spoke about incorporating African architectural elements into modern American designs. "Our heritage isn't just something we wear or eat," he said, gesturing to his traditional attire. It should be in the very structures where we live and work. Every building I design carries the spirit of innovation that brought our parents across oceans to build better lives. In the audience, Destiny Robinson sat with fellow teachers from Roosevelt Elementary, including Gloria Washington and Tamara Mitchell. She hadn't planned to attend, but her principal insisted the school be represented at these community events. Something about Seun's passion caught her attention, the way he balanced professional accomplishment with cultural pride. During the networking session, Seun made his way through the crowd, stopping to speak with Destiny's group. His eyes lingered on her professional yet stylish dress, but it was her questions about his work that truly caught his attention. She asked about incorporating African architectural elements into school designs, speaking about creating culturally affirming spaces for Black children. "My father teaches African-American history," she explained. "He always says our children need to see their culture reflected in their everyday environment." Seun was impressed. Here was a woman who understood the importance of heritage while navigating professional spaces. When she mentioned teaching third grade, he saw it as another sign. She was nurturing the next generation, exactly what he wanted in a wife. Their first date was at an upscale African fusion restaurant in downtown Tampa. Seun ordered in perfect Yoruba, then gently guided Destiny through the menu's traditional dishes. He was charmed by her willingness to try everything, her genuine interest in learning about his culture. The courtship moved quickly. Seun introduced her to Tampa's Nigerian community, proudly showing off the American-born teacher who seemed eager to embrace his traditions. At community events, Destiny wore Ankara prints and practiced the few Yoruba phrases he taught her. She was a quick study in the proper ways to greet elders, serve at gatherings, and participate in cultural ceremonies. For Destiny, each date revealed more of what she thought she wanted: stability, success, and a connection to African culture she'd always felt was missing in her life. Seun represented everything her parents had worked for, a successful Black man who hadn't lost touch with his roots. But there were early signs of tension. At school, Malik noticed the changes in her. "You're wearing different clothes, speaking differently," he observed during one of their lunch breaks. "Just make sure you don't lose yourself trying to become someone else's ideal." The traditional wedding in Houston was a lavish affair, with over 300 guests filling the ballroom of the St. Regis. Destiny wore a deep burgundy and gold aso oak, custom-made in Nigeria. She had practiced for weeks with Seun's sister Adana to perfect the traditional prostration to his parents, the careful serving of drinks, the intricate dance steps. Dr. and Dr. Adebayo beamed with pride as their son married a professional woman who seemed to embrace their culture. But during the ceremony, Seun's mother whispered to a cousin in Yoruba, "She tries hard, but you can see she wasn't raised in our ways. We'll have to teach her properly." A week later, the American ceremony in Tampa presented a different set of challenges. Seun's family found the Baptist church service too loud, too emotional. They whispered about the bride's sleeveless white gown, about the bridesmaids' dances at the reception. Destiny's father gave a passionate toast about Black love and resilience, which Seun's parents politely applauded while exchanging glances. The cracks began to show almost immediately. Seun expected Destiny to begin learning to cook Nigerian dishes, to speak Yoruba at home, to defer to his decisions about their social calendar. "My mother raised me to expect certain things," he would say whenever she questioned these requirements. "This is our culture." Destiny found herself struggling with the weight of expectations. She was expected to attend every Nigerian community event, to help serve at gatherings, to begin thinking about starting a family immediately. When she suggested hiring help for their large home, Seun was offended. "A Nigerian wife takes pride in managing her home," he insisted. At school, her relationship with Malik became more complicated. They still had lunch together. It would have seemed strange to suddenly stop, but now their conversations carried an undercurrent of tension. They both knew their feelings hadn't changed, despite her marriage. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult parent-teacher conference, they found themselves alone in her classroom. The familiar comfort of his presence, the way he understood her without words, led to their first kiss since her marriage. It should have been a moment of guilt, but instead, it felt like coming home. Their secret meetings began cautiously, quick conversations in empty classrooms, text messages deleted immediately after reading, brief touches that lingered too long. They used school events as cover, parent conferences that ran late, curriculum planning sessions that never made it into any official records. Meanwhile, at home, Destiny tried to balance her American identity with her new role. She learned to make jollof rice and egusi soup, practiced her Yoruba, and tried to embrace her new community. But each day felt like wearing a costume that grew heavier and more uncomfortable. Seun noticed her struggles but interpreted them as reluctance to fully embrace his culture. He became more insistent about traditions, more critical of her attempts to maintain certain American habits. "You're an Adebayo now," he would remind her. "That comes with responsibilities." The pressure mounted from both families. Seun's parents began asking about grandchildren, while Destiny's mother noticed her daughter's increasing quietness at family gatherings. The community watched their every move. They were supposed to be a symbol of successful black love, of cultures bridging gracefully. The reality was far more complicated, and far more dangerous than anyone suspected. The waiting room at Dr. Patricia Torres's office felt unusually cold that morning. Destiny sat quietly, scrolling through her phone, trying to focus on her third grader's upcoming science fair instead of her missed period. She had told the school secretary she had a dental appointment, another lie in the growing web of deceptions her life had become. "Mrs. Adebayo." The nurse's cheerful voice made her flinch. Nobody at the doctor's office knew she preferred to go by Ms. Robinson professionally. It was just one of many compromises. The pregnancy test was positive. 8 weeks, Dr. Torres estimated, marking something on her chart. "Congratulations. Your husband must be thrilled." Destiny barely heard the rest. Her mind was already calculating dates, remembering nights. 8 weeks. The charity basketball tournament weekend. When Seun had been in Houston for his parents' anniversary celebration. When Malik. Her hands trembled as she texted Malik from the parking lot. "Need to see you. Emergency." Roosevelt Elementary's gymnasium was empty after school hours, the late afternoon sun streaming through high windows. Malik stood at center court, bouncing a basketball with mechanical precision as he waited. When Destiny walked in, the hollow echo of the ball stopped. "I'm pregnant," she said simply. The words hung in the air between them. Malik dropped the ball. It bounced away, the sound echoing off the walls. How sure are you about?" 8 weeks. Her voice cracked. "You remember that weekend?" The weekend in question had been perfect, sawn away, a school event as cover, hours spent in Malik's apartment talking about everything and nothing, making plans they knew they couldn't keep. Now those stolen moments had created an irrevocable consequence. "I'll support whatever decision you make," Malik said, moving closer but not touching her. "If you want to leave him, I have savings. We could." "You know I can't," Destiny cut him off. "The scandal would destroy both our careers. And the community. You don't understand what this would do to everyone." That night, Destiny lay awake next to Seun, listening to his steady breathing. She had initiated intimacy as soon as he got home, something she'd been avoiding lately. Now she just had to wait a few days before sharing the news. The pregnancy announcement was carefully staged. A romantic dinner at home, Nigerian dishes she'd practiced for weeks. Seun's joy was immediate and overwhelming. He called his parents on video chat that very night. "O Marua," his mother exclaimed, using the Yoruba word for beautiful child. "God has blessed us so quickly. The ancestors are surely pleased with your marriage." Destiny forced herself to smile as her mother-in-law launched into a list of pregnancy traditions she would need to follow. No going out after dark. Specific foods to eat and avoid. Prayers and ceremonies to ensure a healthy child. The news spread through Tampa's Nigerian community like wildfire. Suddenly, Destiny found herself at the center of even more cultural expectations. Elder women visited with advice and regulations. Her mother-in-law called daily with instructions about traditional pregnancy customs. "The firstborn is special in our culture," Seun explained proudly. "Especially a first grandchild. They will carry our family's hopes into the next generation." Each word was a knife in Destiny's heart. At school, Malik watched her navigate morning sickness and well wishes from colleagues, unable to acknowledge his own child growing inside her. Their secret meetings became rarer, too risky with all eyes on the pregnant Mrs. Adebayo. Malik threw himself into his work, staying late to coach basketball, taking on extra mentoring duties. Anything to avoid seeing Destiny's growing belly, to escape the constant congratulations from other teachers to the happy couple. One evening, he found himself sitting in his car outside her house, watching Seun proudly escort her from the car after a doctor's appointment. The sight of Seun's hand on her stomach, his child, made him physically ill. Meanwhile, Destiny navigated an increasingly complex web of lies. Doctor's appointments had to be carefully scheduled and records managed to maintain the fiction about the baby's conception date. Each ultrasound photo shared with the family felt like another betrayal. The situation reached a crisis point during a traditional pregnancy blessing ceremony at the Adebayo home. As elderly Nigerian women prayed over her belly in Yoruba, asking the ancestors to bless this union of two families through the child, Destiny excused herself to be violently ill. "It's normal," the women clucked sympathetically. "The baby is strong, like its father." In the bathroom, Destiny caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Designer maternity dress, carefully arranged head wrap, the perfect Nigerian wife carrying the perfect Nigerian heir. Behind her carefully maintained facade, she felt herself cracking. That night, she texted Malik, "I can't keep doing this." His response came hours later, "Neither can I." But they were both trapped. The child growing inside her represented everything they couldn't have, everything they had risked, and everything that could destroy multiple lives if the truth ever came out. Their love had created something that could shatter two families, damage careers, and scandalize an entire community. As Destiny lay in bed that night, Seun's hand protectively draped over her slightly rounded belly, she realized with growing dread that their web of deception was becoming increasingly fragile. One wrong word, one missed detail, one suspicious question. That's all it would take for everything to unravel. The first crack in Seun's perfect world appeared during a Sunday afternoon call with his mother. "Your wife, Dr. Folake Adebayo said carefully, she missed another wives' meeting. The elders are talking." Seun had noticed too. Destiny, once eager to embrace Nigerian customs, had begun making excuses. Headaches, school preparation, doctor's appointments that somehow never appeared on their shared calendar. It started small. A phone conversation he overheard while passing their home office. "I can't talk now." "No, his home. I'll figure something out." All in English, when she usually sprinkled Yoruba phrases she'd learned to please him. When he entered the room, she ended the call abruptly. "Just school stuff," she said, but her phone disappeared into her pocket too quickly. The changes accumulated like gathering storm clouds. Destiny stopped wearing the gold bracelet his mother had given her, claiming it felt tight due to pregnancy swelling. She began changing her phone's password weekly, always with a laugh about pregnancy brain making her forgetful. At community gatherings, Seun watched her. Once the perfect Nigerian wife, she now sat quietly, withdrawn. During prayers for the unborn child, her hands trembled on her growing belly. "Perhaps it's just the pregnancy," his sister Adana suggested when he mentioned his concerns. But her tone held a question. The medical papers were the first concrete sign. Seun found them while organizing their home office. Prenatal vitamins prescribed before the date she'd told him about the pregnancy. He remembered that weekend in Houston clearly. The dates didn't align. Thomas Banks operated out of a discreet office in Ybor City, his PI license framed alongside photos of his time with Tampa PD. Seun sat stiffly in the leather chair, his architect's portfolio open to maintain the fiction that this was a client meeting if anyone saw him enter. "Start with her school," Seun instructed. "Something's not right there." Banks worked methodically. School surveillance showed Destiny staying late several days a week, always on days when the PE teacher, Malik Jefferson, had basketball practice. Their paths crossed too often to be coincidence. The PI's first report landed in Seun's email via encrypted link. Photos, Destiny and Malik in animated conversation by his car. Her hand on his arm, lingering too long. Their heads close together over lunch in her classroom. "Could be innocent," Banks said. "Want me to dig deeper?" Seun's yes came through clenched teeth. The WhatsApp messages were harder to recover. Destiny had been careful, but Banks had tools. Fragments emerged. Miss you. Can't keep doing this. The baby. Each recovered message was a dagger. Banks found more: secret email accounts, deleted calendar entries, cash withdrawals from ATMs near the school. Meanwhile, Destiny's behavior became more erratic. She forgot to use the pregnancy supplements his mother sent from Nigeria. During an argument about missing another community event, she snapped, "I can't be the perfect Nigerian wife every second." Banks interviewed school staff under the guise of a security consultation. The pieces aligned with devastating precision. "Oh, they've always been close," a teaching assistant offered. "Such good friends. Even before." Before what? Banks pressed. Before her marriage, of course. The school secretary remembered more. Late meetings, classroom doors closed, days when both cars remained in the parking lot long after others had left. The annual Nigerian Association of Tampa Charity Gala should have been Seun's moment of triumph. His firm had designed the new community center being celebrated. Instead, he watched Destiny across the room, noticed how she avoided Malik Jefferson. They're representing Roosevelt Elementary. Their careful distance spoke volumes. Seun's hand tightened on his glass as Malik approached the table where Destiny sat today. They exchanged words, brief and professional. But Seun saw it. The flash of something in their eyes, quickly hidden. He started to rise, ready to confront them both. His sister Adana's hand on his arm stopped him. "Not here," she whispered. "Think of the community. Think of your reputation." Banks' final report was comprehensive. Screenshots of deleted messages, surveillance photos, calendar entries. Bank records showing purchases at stores Destiny had never mentioned visiting. Most damning were the medical records. Banks had found the original dating scan from her first prenatal visit. The dates were impossible if the baby was his. Seun sat in his home office late into the night, surrounded by evidence of his wife's betrayal. On his phone, a text from his mother. "Son, when will Destiny begin the traditional 7th-month ceremonies? The family is waiting." In their bedroom upstairs, he could hear Destiny on the phone, speaking softly in English, thinking he couldn't hear. His hands shook as he opened another set of surveillance photos. The truth was there, documented in cold, clear images. His wife, his child, all built on lies. The final piece fell into place during a routine prenatal appointment. Seun had insisted on accompanying Destiny, watching her face carefully as the doctor discussed the baby's development timeline. "Everything looks perfect for 20 weeks, the doctor said cheerfully. Seun did the math. 20 weeks. The weekend he was in Houston. The weekend Destiny had claimed to be at a teachers' conference. That night, he sat in his office, Thomas Banks' final report open on his laptop, surveillance photos spread across his desk. In one, Destiny and Malik stood close together outside Roosevelt Elementary, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. The timestamp mocked him, the very day she had told him about the pregnancy. His phone buzzed, another message from his mother about traditional pregnancy blessings. About his firstborn child. About his legacy. But it wasn't his legacy at all. It was all a lie. Seun sat in his home office before dawn, the paternity test results illuminated by his desk lamp. The genetic testing facility had rushed the results using the DNA from Destiny's latest prenatal screening, a test he had secretly requested through his mother's medical connections. The words blurred before his eyes, probability of paternity excluded. In their bedroom upstairs, Destiny was still sleeping. Her phone buzzed quietly on her nightstand. Another early message from Malik, "We need to tell him. I can't watch you walk into that baby blessing ceremony next week living this lie." Destiny felt the tension the moment she returned from school. Seun's car was in the driveway hours early. The house was too quiet, the air too still. In the kitchen, she found him sitting at the island counter, a manila envelope before him. "How was school?" His voice was carefully neutral. "Did you see Malik today?" The use of his first name, not Mr. Jefferson or the PE teacher, made her blood run cold. "Sit down," Seun said, pushing the envelope across the granite countertop. We need to talk about your baby. Our baby, Destiny corrected automatically, one hand moving protectively to her stomach. No. His voice cut like ice. Not our baby. His baby. The photos spilled across the counter, surveillance images, medical documents, text messages. 5 months of investigation laid bare in harsh color prints. I can explain, Destiny began. Explain. Seun's laugh was bitter. Explain how you made me a joke in my community, how you let me tell my parents they were having their first grandchild, knowing it was all a lie. Their voices rose, emotions spilling out in 2 languages. Seun switched between English and Yoruba, his cultural shame too deep for one tongue to express. Do you know what this will do to my family? To my reputation? His words echoed off the high ceilings. Everything I've built, everything I am in this community, you've destroyed it all. Your reputation. Destiny's voice cracked. What about me? You wanted to turn me into something I'm not. Every day, more rules, more traditions, more expectations. I gave you everything. Seun's fist crashed onto the counter. A beautiful home, respect in the community, a chance to be part of something greater than your small American life. I'm leaving, Destiny announced, turning toward the stairs. Malik and I. The sound of his name from her lips broke something in Seun. He caught her arm as she turned, spinning her back to face him. You're not going anywhere with my child. It's not your child. The words hung in the air like smoke before a fire. Later, neighbors would report hearing the argument shift from English to Yoruba and back, voices rising and falling. They heard objects breaking, a woman's scream, a man's roar of rage. Inside, the violence erupted with frightening speed. Seun's hands found her throat, rage and shame burning away reason. Destiny fought back, nails drawing blood, feet kicking, body twisting to protect her unborn child. Please, she gasped. The baby. But Seun was beyond hearing. In his mind, he saw his parents' faces when they learned the truth, saw his community's whispers, saw his carefully built life crumbling. When Seun's hands finally loosened, Destiny lay still on the imported tile floor. Blood trickled from where her head had struck the counter's edge. Her phone lay nearby, screen cracked, Malik's last message still displaying, "Be careful. Call me after you talk to him." Seun stood over her body, his architect's hands trembling. On the walls, photos of their wedding, traditional Nigerian ceremony and American service side by side, watched in silent judgment. He made one call, not to emergency services, not to family, but to his sister Adana. "It's done," he said in Yoruba. Then he walked out, got in his car, and drove to Lagos nights. He would sit there, ordering drinks but not touching them, until the police found him hours later. Behind him, he left a house full of broken dreams. Shattered photos, scattered medical records, a phone with dozens of missed calls, and the body of a woman who had tried to live between 2 worlds until those worlds tore her apart. Officer Sarah Chen would find the scene just as Seun left it. She would note the broken glass, the overturned furniture, the mix of languages in the final text messages on Destiny's phone. And she would call Detective Folake Okonjo, knowing this case would shake Tampa's African community to its core. In the quiet house, the only sound was the gentle hum of the air conditioning, cooling a room where cultural expectations, personal desires, and fatal choices had collided with devastating consequences. Detective Folake Okonjo arrived at the Adebayo residence as the September night settled over Tampa's upscale Palmetto Creek estates. Emergency lights painted the Mediterranean-style home in alternating red and blue, creating an eerie display against the cream-colored walls. She took a deliberate moment to adjust her badge and straighten her blazer. Even at a crime scene, she knew presentation mattered in the Nigerian community. Every detail would be noticed, discussed, and interpreted. Officer Sarah Chen met her at the yellow crime scene tape, notebook in hand. Victim is Destiny Robinson Adebayo, 28, approximately 20 weeks pregnant, Chen reported efficiently. Signs of strangulation and head trauma. Husband's been located at Lagos Nights Lounge. Okonjo absorbed this information, her mind already working through the cultural implications. A Nigerian man seeking refuge at an African lounge rather than calling family or police. It spoke volumes about his state of mind. Inside, the house told a story of wealth and cultural fusion that had ended in tragedy. African art hung beside modern abstracts, traditional sculptures shared space with contemporary furniture, and family photos showed the couple in both traditional Nigerian attire and Western clothing. One such photo lay broken on the imported tile floor, the glass cracked diagonally across their smiling faces. The crime scene unit worked methodically, photographing and collecting evidence while Okonjo surveyed the scene. She paid particular attention to the pattern of the struggle, noting how it had begun at the kitchen island, where chairs were pulled out as if for conversation, before escalating into violence. On the granite countertop, scattered papers told their own story: medical records, surveillance photos, text message printouts, and a private investigator's report bearing Thomas Banks' letterhead. Document everything in both English and Yoruba, she instructed her team, knowing the case would require delicate handling within the community. She paid special attention to Destiny's phone, ordering it bagged separately. Something had triggered this confrontation tonight, and she suspected the answer lay in those digital records. The next morning, Okonjo began her investigation not with standard police procedures, but with a crucial breakfast meeting at the Sunshine Diner with 3 pillars of Tampa's Nigerian community: Chief Ademola of the Nigerian Association of Tampa, Pastor Oluwaseun of Abundant Life Nigerian Church, and Dr. Balogun, a respected elder and cultural advisor. Over plates of eggs and grits that none of them touched, they discussed the implications of the case. "This will affect everyone," Chief Ademola warned, his voice heavy with concern. "Already, people are choosing sides. Some say she dishonored our traditions. Others blame him for being too controlling." Okonjo understood the delicacy of her position. She needed to solve a murder while helping her community process a tragedy that threatened to create deep divisions. At Roosevelt Elementary, Principal Dr. Marcus Washington provided access to security footage, email records, and staff schedules. The victim's classroom became a tableau of her life: photos of smiling students, African history displays, a drawer containing extra pregnancy vitamins, and a basketball schedule magnet to her desk. The absence of Malik Jefferson, who had called in sick after hearing the news, spoke volumes. The forensics lab began piecing together physical evidence. DNA under Destiny's nails matched Seun, hair fibers on her clothing traced to both men, and phone records revealed a pattern of deleted messages. Security footage from neighbors' cameras had captured fragments of the final argument, voices rising and falling in both English and Yoruba. Dr. Adebayo, professor of African Studies at the University of South Florida, provided crucial context as a cultural expert. "This case intersects multiple cultural pressure points," she explained during their consultation. "In Nigerian culture, firstborn children carry tremendous weight, and paternity deception strikes at the heart of family honor. But we must also consider the American context, her struggle for autonomy, the conflict between cultural identity and personal freedom." The interviews painted a picture of mounting tension and inevitable tragedy. Malik Jefferson, found at his sister's apartment, broke down during questioning. "We never meant to hurt anyone," he repeated, tears streaming down his face. "But the pregnancy, we should have told the truth sooner." Seun's sister, Adebayo, provided insight into her brother's state of mind. "I warned him about his controlling nature, about rushing the marriage. But shame in our culture, it can make people unrecognizable." School staff interviews revealed the subtle signs they had missed: changes in Destiny's behavior after marriage, her close relationship with Malik, Seun's increasing presence at school events, and the palpable tension in the final weeks. Each statement added another layer to the tragedy. The investigation sent shockwaves through Tampa's African community. The Nigerian Association suspended its gatherings, church leaders called for healing, and young couples began questioning cultural expectations while elders worried about preserving traditions. The case had become a mirror reflecting the community's own struggles with balancing tradition and modernity. Detective Okonjo's final report carefully wove together physical evidence, cultural context, and community impact. She documented how a paternity test had sparked the final confrontation, how an argument over cultural shame had escalated into violence, and how the revelation of the pregnancy's true parentage had triggered the fatal rage. This case, she wrote in her conclusion, represents more than a domestic homicide. It mirrors the struggles of a community balancing tradition and change, cultural preservation and adaptation, honor and truth. For the district attorney's office, she prepared a comprehensive presentation that emphasized both fact and cultural understanding. The case would need to be prosecuted with a deep awareness of the complex dynamics that had led to tragedy. As she assembled the files, timeline, cultural context document, physical evidence analysis, witness statements, expert testimonies, and community impact assessment, Okonjo knew this case would leave an indelible mark on Tampa's African community, forcing them to confront difficult questions about tradition, assimilation, and the price of preserving cultural identity in modern America. The Tampa courthouse buzzed with tension on a crisp October morning as Seun Adebayo's trial began. The marble halls echoed with whispers in English and Yoruba, as two communities, African-American and Nigerian, filled opposite sides of the courtroom. Local news cameras clustered outside, their reports highlighting the cultural clash at the heart of the tragedy. Inside courtroom 4B, State Prosecutor Maria Ramirez faced a unique challenge. This case, she told the jury in her opening statement, is about more than a domestic homicide. It's about what happens when cultural expectations collide with personal choices, when honor becomes more valuable than life itself. Defense attorney Jonathan Mitchell built his case around cultural context. He brought in experts on Nigerian traditions, arguing that Seun's actions, while not excusable, needed to be understood through the lens of cultural shame and family honor. Dr. Adebayo, the cultural expert, testified about the weight of firstborn children in Nigerian families, the shame of paternity deception, and the pressure of maintaining face in a close-knit immigrant community. In Nigerian culture, Dr. Adebayo explained to the rapt jury, a man's reputation is everything. The revelation that his firstborn child, already celebrated by the community, was not his own. This represents a shame almost impossible for Americans to comprehend. But the prosecution had Detective Folake Okonjo. Her testimony carefully balanced cultural understanding with uncompromising truth. Cultural context explains behavior, she testified, but it doesn't excuse murder. She walked the jury through the evidence. The methodical investigation Seun had conducted, the premeditation evident in his confrontation planning, the brutality of the final attack. The most powerful testimony came from the families. James Robinson, Destiny's father, spoke about his daughter's struggle to balance love and cultural expectations. She tried so hard to be what everyone wanted, he said, his voice breaking. She tried to be the perfect Nigerian wife while staying true to herself. In the end, she couldn't be both. Dr. and Dr. Adebayo, Seun's parents, testified about their son's dedication to tradition, their pride in his success, and their devastation at the tragedy. We wanted him to have everything, his mother said in accented English. Maybe we pushed too hard for perfection. Malik Jefferson's testimony brought many to tears. He spoke about their love, their fear of cultural consequences, and his eternal guilt over not protecting Destiny and their unborn child. I should have been braver, he said, looking directly at Seun. We both should have been braver. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they returned, their verdict echoed through the hushed courtroom, guilty of second-degree murder. The judge, acknowledging both the cultural context and the premeditated nature of the crime, sentenced Seun to 25 years in prison. But the real impact of the case extended far beyond the courthouse. Tampa's Nigerian community found itself in deep reflection. The Nigerian Association of Tampa organized cultural dialogue sessions, bringing together elders and young people to discuss tradition, adaptation, and change. At Roosevelt Elementary, a scholarship was established in Destiny's name, aimed at promoting cultural understanding and supporting young teachers. The Teachers' Lounge, where she and Malik had shared so many lunches, was renamed the Robinson Memorial Room. The tragedy sparked difficult conversations within Nigerian-American families across Florida. Parents and children began discussing the balance between cultural preservation and personal freedom. Young couples started premarital counseling that specifically addressed cultural expectations and individual autonomy. Malik Jefferson eventually left Roosevelt Elementary, unable to walk those halls without remembering. He established a youth mentoring program focusing on cultural identity and emotional intelligence, trying to create something meaningful from his loss. The Robinsons and Adebayos, once united in celebration at a wedding, now found themselves united in grief. After months of separation, the two families began meeting with a cultural mediator, working to understand each other and find a way forward. They established the Robinson-Adebayo Foundation, dedicated to preventing domestic violence in immigrant communities and promoting cultural understanding. In prison, Seun began writing about cultural pressure and personal responsibility, his words becoming part of a larger discussion about tradition and change in immigrant communities. His sister Adana used his letters in her psychiatric practice, helping other families navigate the complex waters of cultural expectations. 5 years after the tragedy, Tampa's African community had changed. Traditional ceremonies now often included discussions about cultural adaptation. Premarital counseling became standard in Nigerian-American marriages. The community began celebrating diversity within tradition, acknowledging that cultural identity could be fluid without being lost. Detective Okonjo, speaking at a conference on cultural competency in law enforcement, summed up the legacy of the case. What happened to Destiny Robinson Adebayo forced our community to confront difficult truths about tradition, adaptation, and change. Her death became a catalyst for necessary conversations about how we preserve our culture while allowing it to evolve. The case became required reading in criminal justice programs focusing on cultural competency. Law enforcement agencies across Florida developed new protocols for handling cases involving cultural conflicts. The tragedy had changed not just families and communities, but institutions as well. In the end, the case of Destiny Robinson Adebayo became more than a cautionary tale. It became a turning point for a community learning to balance tradition with change, cultural pride with personal freedom, and the weight of the past with the needs of the present. Her story lived on as both a warning and a call for change, a reminder that cultural heritage should preserve life and love, not destroy them.